see how this thing goes, man. It's kind of different. Obviously, you see everybody else out there in the world getting online and talking about things, and shit, might as well, because two normal people, like average Joes out in the middle of nowhere, like we're not in any famous place. We have no famous connections. I mean, why not just hear our point of view? I mean, why not?
Right, man. That's we've been saying that for a long time. It's like we have all these conversations, and it's like people can gain information off of this if they want. And
yeah, and if you don't, you don't. I mean, who cares? I mean, it's just two people's point of view on. I mean, geez, really the ins and outs of 4 years of just abnormalities in society. I mean, you just see them all over the place, and you just a lot of questions and a lot of weird things, and
obviously,
and like
abnormalities that have been there. I mean, they've been here throughout, the last since the 60s.
Oh, at least
or earlier, even. I mean, into the 1800s even, but it's all kind of just coming out because of all this, access to information and just
it's almost like it backfired. Like we're going to create this amazing technological advancement for people to, I mean, almost in a weird way, like distract the entire world from any type of secrets that they would know. And then, oh crap, the technology is so advanced, people can actually start to find things on their own.
Yeah.
I mean, they can, if they actually spend the time and, not just read the, one thing I always tell my students, is don't just read the article title, because that's not going to give you the information, and don't just read it from one source. Like, you've got to, even if you hate CNN or MSNBC, or if your parents or your family is 100% against Fox News or whatever it is, it's like you still got to listen to them. You got to be able to hear it from all different angles before you really have a decent understanding of the content.
Yeah, and most platforms do put out, truth sometimes. Like you watch these alternative news sources, and they're always going into like, oh yeah, CNN, they did this thing right. They pointed out the obvious, the elephant in the room, and we commend them for doing that. They do that sometimes, but they don't. It's definitely not consistent, and it gets silenced.
Yeah, it's just very odd in regards to the like extreme. To me, it's like you sometimes you're like going through. I mean, I guess I'll take like just recently. I think. Well, I mean, I guess in general, like things are just always in today's world, in the regards to how we get our information. I mean, everything is completely blown out of proportion. It is over exaggerated to just a significant amount where, it creates fear or anxiety, or, makes people panic or rush to the store like the world's going to end. I mean, geez, that's happened. I mean, what we're 80, 89, 90, 91. I mean, we haven't lived like the longest lives in the world, but even in our lifetime, there's been 3 significant, end of the world type of things. And right now is the, it appears in like the news and everything that this is like the 3rd one, like, geez, what the heck's going on out there in the world?
Right.
But I don't know, man. It's just one of those things, you think about like, I mean, obviously you and I both come from a very biblical, kind of upbringing in the sense of a Christian faith, and I want to be careful, I guess, in a way of when we talk about that, because like I want to say it in a way that like a true Christian faith, where it's like, yeah, man, we have made plenty of mistakes in our lives. I mean, you and I both, and we aren't proud of those things, and but we know that God is good, and we know that, you know, Jesus died for those types of decisions that we make, so that when that time comes, we have the opportunity to find a better place. And I think that's, you know, you know, living a true Christian life, trying to do what's right, but having an understanding that you're gonna fail at times, you know, and not beating yourself up or giving up because you failed, but realize that you can learn from it and move forward, and not only make yourself a better person, but the people around you. You know, I think that's the gift that we have, and I think a lot of people just take that for granted, or use the mask of being Christian or holy or better than everyone else. And you know, that's not what our Bible says. So I don't, you know, I want to make sure there's a difference in what we're, you know, when we talk about faith, if we talk about faith at all. So.
Yeah. And, you know, speaking, you know, coming from my experience, just being completely surrounded in the church, you know, ever since I was a baby, going through Christian school and that, and then even still making those mistakes, and you know, and questioning and having questions, and just looking for answers, you know, and finding those answers, and wishing that I had those answers earlier in life, you know, and came to realization
Right.
sooner. And you know, God speaks in mysterious ways, and he helps us get through, you know, these trials, and come out stronger on the other side. And it's always, and once your eyes are open to that, and then you can see, you know, what he has done for you, then it's really hard um to not look past, you know. It's kind of just staring at you in your face, and it's, yeah.
Right. It's just right there. Like, it's not going away either.
Right.
You know, I mean, yeah, I totally get that. And that's, you know, in a weird way, you know, I mean, obviously, you know, as you grow and as you get older and things like that, you start to connect the dots a lot more. And I think obviously you and I had that conversation the other day where it's like, you know, now that we're older, and we not only have the obviously physiological development of just being more mature and our brains are more fully developed, but just the intuitiveness to, like, you know, see something and then have the ability to actually go investigate it and look at it. And I think, you know, what we've done in that regard, not only in society's things that are going on, but also scripture and how it relates to the things that we see taking place now, and how, you know, there are a lot of connections, you know, there's a lot of dots that connect, and it's very interesting, our conversations that we've had in the past. And I'm actually really excited to kind of reiterate some of those conversations, you know, that we had 4 years ago, and kind of bring them back to today and go, holy crap, it still makes sense. You know, it's everything we said then is actually taking place now, which is really odd because, you know, I mean, we have no superpowers by any means of being psychics or anything, but it's like, we talked about this stuff 4 years ago. Like, this wasn't going to go well. The 2020 election's not going to go well. It's not possible, you know, and then looking at diving deep into those crazy, you know, I mean, we call them crazy, people out there in the world call them crazy conspiracies, but the reality is when you do your investigations, I mean, and you really do try to connect your own dots, and, you know, some of those dots do connect, some of them don't, but some of them do. And I think those are the things that people at least need to be aware of. You know, I mean, psychology says, you know, you can only be aware of the things that you are attending to. And so whatever you're perceiving, whatever's in your attention span are the only things you're aware of. So if nobody's ever heard of it, if nobody's ever paid attention to it or ever seen it, they're never going to know what's actually going on. So, I mean, just bringing a little bit of light to some of the things that people are talking about might actually assist people in their thinking, you know?
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
I will say this though, I gotta share this with you, man, because it was pretty sweet. You know me, I'm not not a crier. I don't cry, dude. It's not that I'm like some, you know me. I'm not like some rough and tough guy. I have a heart, but I don't cry often.
I got it. Sure.
And I'm driving to the store to get my wife some stuff. Just not feeling the best. Not COVID related by any means, trust me, but just not feeling the best. And so I'm listening to this song, and obviously all this Christmas music's on, and all of that kind of stuff. And it's a different rendition of "O Come, Emmanuel" by Matt Maher.
Okay.
And I wish we could play it, dude, because you can just feel it. But I'm sure if we put anybody's music in this thing and posted it, it gets shut down in a second, since we didn't pay for it.
Yeah, no, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
But yeah, I mean, just the lyrics, dude. Like he said, like I'm driving, and obviously being a drummer and just loving music, I just like feeling the music. But I mean the words. He says, "Rejoice again, I say rejoice, for unto us is born the Savior of the world. Take heart, O weary soul, take heart, for help is on its way, and holy is his name." Like that, like I have no idea why I'm driving down the road, I know why I'm driving down the road, but I have no idea why I'm crying my eyes out listening to hearing these words. I'm like, holy, what the heck's going on? And it was just really cool, because I'm like, man, out of all the stuff we've been talking about, and then to hear like, for help is on its way,
I love that.
Help is that. Oh, I love that, man. Because,
well, and it's good to hear that I'm not the only one either, because that happens to me all the time. Like going back and forth, dropping my son off from school and whatnot. It's like I get to see the most beautiful times of day, and I see the sunrise, and then when at this time of the day when I'm driving home at 5 o'clock, I see the sunset, and it's just like you can just picture Jesus coming down on the clouds, and then it just takes your breath away, literally.
Right.
And yeah, I've been feeling that too a lot lately.
I had that conversation with a couple students. I mean, obviously I'm very open with my students, and with laws and things like that put into place. Religion isn't something that obviously is necessarily a free, open-ended conversation within an educational establishment. But a couple of my kids the other day come up to me and they're like, "What do you think? What do you think it's going to look like when Jesus comes back?" And geez, thanks for opening that door. That's awesome. I love that. And but it was funny because one of my other students, a female student, had been wearing a shirt earlier that day, or obviously that day, and it was a picture of Santa and Jesus, and Jesus had like some like the retro like Oakley sunglasses. I don't know what they're called, but like the big old lens sunglasses. Yeah. And I was like, I think if Jesus was to come back just wearing those sunglasses, riding on the cloud like it says he does, and he's like, "What's up, everybody? I'm back." I think it'd get people's attention. I really do. but no, I don't think he's got Oakleys. I don't know. He might. He has everything. Honestly, he has whatever he wants, which is awesome. But yeah, man. No, I just heard that song and was just like, man, that's just in this moment in time. In the moment that we're living in right now, with riots, chaos, election issues, pandemics, just a lot of unsettling times, to hear a lyric that says help is on its way. Like that is, and then referencing Christ, like that's the help you're getting, the best help you could ever ask for in your entire life. Like that's the help that's coming. Like that's an awesome message. I don't care who you are, if you believe or you don't believe. I mean, to hear that the best help that you could ever ask for is on its way. I mean, what else do you want? I don't know. I don't know what else you could ask for.
I know. And I had that moment too the other day when I was listening to the song came on, Little Drummer Boy by King and Country, for King and Country.
I listened to that one tonight too. Yeah, man.
And Jax was in the car, and he was he likes that. He loves that song too. And I explained to him afterwards. I was like, see, this is because he had asked me that morning. He was like, oh, I wonder what. He's like, what should we get Jesus for Christmas?
Oh, that's
Because
awesome.
for his birthday is what he said.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's a good question, buddy. And then this song came on, and then and uh I was like, you know what? You know what you can give to Jesus is just do your best at everything. Do your best
Yeah.
at everything you do. Live with the knowledge that Jesus is living in your heart, and that you can do anything to the best of your abilities, and that's all he asks you to do, and to live for him, and to acknowledge that
Right.
um he is your helper and your savior,
Right.
and I told him that, and he was just like, oh yeah. He's like, yeah, that's a good idea. And before he left, I was like, remember, make decisions from your heart, because that's where Jesus lives. And he was like,
Right.
okay, all right, bye, Dad. And then it was a cool moment, I
Oh,
thought.
that's awesome. Yeah. Our little guy told us the other day we were going to eat dinner, and he's like, are we going to talk to Jesus? And we're like, because we did it the night before, and we didn't. We were just going to start mowing down our food, and like before he took his bite, he looked at us and he's like, hey, are we going to talk to Jesus? And I'm like, yeah, we are, man. I totally forgot. I'm so sorry. I cannot believe I forgot.
Oh, I can picture it. That's hilarious.
You know him. You know how he would be too. Like, he'd give you that mean mug, the little I stink eye.
Yeah.
Like, hey, what are you doing? So, but yeah, man, it's good. I mean, it's always good to just have faith, man. Just to have that hope that there's something better. There's something better to come, and there's a promise out there. And you take the time to read it, you understand it. And I think, honestly, that's in a weird way, man. I mean, for you and me, I mean, that's always how we've been connected. I mean, you're the godfather of my son. You, honestly, little drummer boy. I mean, it's very strange, and you might not even remember this, but obviously in Sheldon they have Rise Fest, and I think one year your parents had tickets, and they had a couple extras, and so my wife and I came with you guys and went into like the little VIP zone, and I remember your mom goes, I think they're gonna play Little Drummer Boy, and you're like, Mom, you said it. You're like, Mom, they're not gonna play that song. It's a Christmas song. And then sure enough, the next song, it's Little Drummer Boy, and it was like the entire place was just bumping. It was such a great environment. Yeah. And yeah, it was awesome. But I mean, that was like, for me, that was a long time ago, and that was one of our first like family bonding experiences, if you will, like your family and our family, and so that was pretty cool. And just to have that Rise Fest connection there too is pretty sweet, because
that was sweet. Yeah, I forget about that.
Honestly, I mean, I've been once, and living in this area of Northwest Iowa for I don't know how long now, but to be able to go even just the one time that I was able to go to Rise Fest, it was just one of those events where it's like, man, if the world could just feel what people feel here, that energy that we were talking about the other day, in reference to that David Icke guy, it's like,
oh yeah,
wow, the energy in that place, just praising Jesus, like just being thankful for what they have. I mean, there's believers and non-believers. They're probably a ratio of 90-10, but even the 10% is just grateful for their lives, in that moment.
Yes.
And there's a reason to be thankful. And obviously that reason is Christ. But even if you don't know that, I mean, just to have the sense of being grateful for what you have in your life in that moment. I mean, what a great experience with thousands of people,
Yeah.
Or if it's thousands, I don't know. I don't know if you can fit thousands of people there, but.
No, I used to have, I was pretty used to going to those things because we would go to like Lifelight used to be in Sioux City. So we would
Right.
go to that. That was like over Labor Day weekend when we were little, and that was like free back in the day. So we would, obviously my parents couldn't resist that, so we would go to that, and like Newsboys would be there, and it was,
Oh yeah.
a bunch of other contemporary Christian bands. So
Right.
yeah, I know what you mean, man.
Pretty sweet. Yeah. I just really, I don't know. I think music speaks to us in such a way, and I mean, geez, let's talk about the opposite effect. Golly, I mean, look at look at music today, and just I mean, we've had this conversation for a while, and if we want to jump down a rabbit
No,
hole,
you're breaking up. You're breaking up a little bit.
oh, I am.
Yeah, there it is.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm moving around. I'll stop moving. I'm getting excited because I mean, you and I have over the last, well, we've known each other for what, 7-8 years now, but over the last, like, I don't know, 4 years or so, when a lot of this chaotic stuff started taking place, I mean, you and I were able to just start connecting some dots and jumping down some rabbit holes. And I mean, one of those rabbit holes obviously led to some famous people, but I mean, put that aside for a second, because I don't know if we want to talk about that yet, but I mean, just today's music industry and the types of performances and I mean, many people will say it's an expression of art, and I get that 100%. And people express things in many different ways. I mean, I was an art minor in college. I understand that, but my issue with it is artwork is supposed to, express the things that people are passionate about, or, the things that really influence other people. And you look at Super Bowl halftimes, and you look at just even like some of the new music videos, or even some of just the music song titles are just so demeaning towards either, religion or women, or, I mean, it's terrible. And yet here we are, just turning up the radio, bumping out to it, having no idea like what the words are even saying, and it's like, these people are talking about doing drugs and murdering people and like doing some crazy things. And then in the music videos, they just seem to be so dark, I mean, I don't know if I've never seen a happy image with a bunch of blood,
Yeah.
Like I've never seen that. And I just feel like, I've got a kid, you've got a kid. And it's like, what are they looking up to? Like, what are they looking forward to in their lives? Like who's, besides us, which I firmly believe are great role models. But, I think, the celeb industry, the famous, the people that are in our face all the time. I mean, what message are they sending us, because we don't get to spend every second of the day with our kids. So when they are on the computers, or they're at school, or they're talking to their friends, or obviously, new age kids are on TikTok and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, what are they being exposed to, and what's their new normal going to be in the next 10 years from what they've learned from,
Right.
And it just, I worry about that, because
I think about that all the time.
Video, that last Miley Cyrus video I shared with you, I don't even know the song title. I didn't even care.
Yeah, no, I couldn't tell you.
There's just like blood all down her chest, and like, what is that? I don't understand that. Like, I don't. And people just thrive on that, They love that, and it's
but
weird.
It's the
it's
whole,
and
like it goes back. It's Miley Cyrus now. Lady Gaga was, she's like kind of, she's not as, blatant with it anymore. She's not as like famous as she used to be, I guess you could say.
Like, I feel like they went the opposite ways.
And then it goes back to, Madonna, she did the same thing, before that, before Lady Gaga. And it's just that, it's just kind of, kind of focus. I mean, obviously there's a lot more people, but it's kind of weird how it all kind of just follows that generational path since
100%.
like
Yeah, I
Madonna.
mean, yeah. Look at. I mean, it's like a trap. I mean, you take Miley Cyrus, who was Hannah Montana. You get a whole young female generation hooked on Hannah Montana, and then this sweet, innocent, coming of age music girl, is the story, at least behind the scenes. We know that's probably not what was taking place, but the story that's being presented to the consumers is that this sweet, innocent, up and coming, great voice, whatever. And then the shift, so all of these young females, that are looking up to Hannah Montana are wanting to be like her. So when Hannah Montana makes the shift to Miley Cyrus, you would expect the same thing, that like, oh, she's doing this, I want to be like her still, and I think we see that. I think we see that in not only what, like, appearances and what the new common trend is for clothing, but I think we see that also in behavior. Just like I don't care, I can do whatever I want behavior. And I think that's a learned behavior from what these kids have been exposed to when they were younger. I mean, literally all of their idols, or quote unquote idols, or celebs that they've had to look up to, all have that type of a attitude. I don't care, I can do whatever I want, I'm untouchable. I mean, geez, Justin Bieber, got in a bunch of trouble. Miley Cyrus has obviously been just open about her sexuality, and I mean, those kids hear that and then they want to be like that. And I think that's a shame. I think that's just a bad deal, because kids don't know that until you're doing it, until you're doing it, you're trying it, or you're trying to be cool or whatever.
And our parents always told us too, like, oh, that's disgusting. Why do you guys, how can you, listen to that, or what, you shouldn't entertain those things, and you don't, and you're just like, oh, you don't know anything. You don't know what you're talking about. Like, this is normal. This is fine. And
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, we are normalizing abnormal behaviors. I mean, I'm sorry, but like, there was a clip where, The Rock had said something about, like, he was talking to a kid, I think a kid in an interview, a kid and his dad. And he's like, how old are you? And he's like, I'm 12. He's like, oh, well, I only eat children up to the age of 10. Like, that's not even a funny joke, man. Like, I'm sorry. Like, who says that? Like, come on. Like, but that's normalizing an abnormal behavior, like having a celebrity say things like that and then publicly release it. Like, it's just desensitizing us to these crazy things. And it's obvious, I guess. And I think, about 4 years ago is when you and I, 3 or 4 years ago, whatever, we were like, well, let's look into it. And it's like, I forgot what they call that in psychology, but, it's like the FedEx logo. It's like a subliminal message, It's like there's an arrow in the FedEx logo. And if you've never seen it before, if you're listening to this or whatever, and you've never seen the arrow in the FedEx logo, the crazy thing is once you see it, you'll never unsee it. You'll always know there's an arrow in the FedEx logo.
Mm-hmm.
But you would never know that until you see it for at least one time. And I think you and I can both say this easily, that once we were made aware of some of these things through even what people want to call conspiracy theory, whatever. You can call it conspiracy theory. We can say, well, there's just a lot of coincidences. Or you can say that, it's definitely something to look into, and whatever you want to say is it's the reality is there's a lot out there. And I think what you and I've done a decent job of is look into it with the most unbiased perspective, keeping God obviously at the forefront of our minds.
Mm-hmm.
But man, like, when we started jumping in those rabbit holes, man, I'll tell you what, there's a lot out there people need to think about. I mean, honestly, I mean, just to consider it. I mean, think about it. You know, I mean, there's nothing wrong with thinking about it and trying to debunk something that might even sound the most crazy thing in the world. Like, if you give it a little bit of thought, at least you can debunk it yourself and you can move on, you know. But if you're not even aware of it, then you could be deceived your entire life. You could follow somebody or find a leader who's leading you into the worst place in the world, but until you're made aware of that, you would have no idea.
Right. Absolutely.
And I think that's the kind of stuff that at least you and I can discuss. And if people care, that'd be awesome. And if they don't, I mean, hey, whatever. It's you. And that's the beauty of our lives, is that we all get to make choices and we get to decide how we want to live our lives. No matter how many rules and how many laws and how many things are put into place to manipulate the ways we live our lives. I mean, in the end, we still have the freedom of thought, and we can believe what we want to believe, no matter what is physically taking place. And so the mind is a very powerful thing, I believe. And I think if, like we said, you know, you get made aware of something, then you might not stop seeing it. You know, we start pointing out like symbolism in talk shows and all of that. When we start talking about that, once you see it, you'll never unsee it, and you'll see that it's consistent. It's all the time.
Well, yeah, and I think when you start to see that too, when you start to get pointed out to those little, you know, clues and those little subliminal messages everywhere, I think that kind of makes you slow down in your thought process and like kind of think about everything and analyze everything, but kind of before you do it a little bit more. Because it's like these things are all around us, but what is it really? What are we going to do about it? You know?
Yeah, that's the hard part.
Like, what are we going to?
What causes the most anxiety?
Yeah, and I think to be able to just slow down and just live your life and just do everything you can to make your life and the people around you's life better.
Right.
You know, that's a powerful thing.
No, I agree with that. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, life is an amazing thing if used properly, but it can definitely be a burden, you know, if you don't use it the right way, if you don't use every minute and every second you get to try to make the best of it, you know, then yeah, I mean, it can definitely become an issue for people. And so, especially if you're misguided, you know, in the grand scheme of society. I mean, if you're going down the wrong ways and looking up to the wrong people or listening to the wrong people, I mean, geez, yeah. I mean, your life can be really, really, really tough.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you want to talk about? What you want to jump into a rabbit hole tonight or what?
Sure, man. Yeah, whatever you got in mind. We got
well, there's about 1,000 of them.
I know.
I don't know. I mean,
so what do you think about all this voter fraud stuff going on in Georgia right now? Like in Georgia, all that video that came out. Did you watch that video of the polling station?
I did, and you know, I mean, a buddy of mine from college, he brings up a good point. I mean, we're not there. We literally, I mean, yes, it's video footage. Yes, it looks to me personally, it looks very obvious that everybody was asked to leave. There was a group of people who waited until every single other person was gone, and then they started working on something. I mean, do I have any type of evidence from that security footage myself that, I mean, I could guarantee they were working on ballots or any, I know I can't, I don't know. I'm not an investigator. But true. I mean, to me, it is 100% suspicious behavior that you sat around on a chair for about 30 minutes until everybody left, and then you got to work. I mean, that was 30 minutes wasted just waiting for people to leave, in my opinion. You know, I mean, if you still had a job to do and people were leaving, I feel like if I was trying to get home and I wasn't going to be working anymore, I'd just get my job done, not take a 30-minute break until everybody leaves and then get my job done. Like it's just odd behavior to me.
And not even like
So,
take a 30-minute break. Not to just like sit there, just
yeah,
to
they're not even
sit
doing
there.
anything. They're just lounging, waiting for people to leave, in my opinion. And then what I find very odd, honestly, is that two males, I believe, from what it looked like in the video, like they come in and then they leave. So like they come in, they drop off some stuff, and then they leave, and then we don't see them again. At least in the footage that was presented in the videos that have been released. I mean, you don't see them again, but it's just very strange that there's 4 or 5 people just working until the wee hours of the morning without being supervised, without any type of standardized process taking place. I mean, whether it's standardized or not, I mean, generally, I'd feel like, the best place to store ballots wouldn't be under a table in the middle of the room. I don't know. I mean, I don't do that kind of work, so I can't judge them that way. But I guess from what I saw, I mean, I saw what I saw. It's suspicious. If I were those people doing that stuff, I'd probably hire a lawyer real quick, because you're gonna get questioned real hard if you haven't already. I mean, you were in some suspicious territory, those people. And the funny thing for me, man, honestly, is they're all wearing like bright ass colored clothes.
Yeah.
Like the brightest of shirts, like the brightest yellow shirt you could find, the brightest blue shirt you could find, like the most vibrant shirts. Like you're not hiding from anybody.
Right.
You're not like, I don't think you're on camera. I think that's the problem.
But do you really think so? Do you think that they really, I mean, anybody in their right mind sitting there working at a polling station, wouldn't you think that there's going to be cameras?
Well,
Wouldn't you
I
just
mean,
know that there's going to be cameras on you?
here's the thing though, right? I mean, here's my mindset. Okay. If I'm working for somebody, right, and they give me a job to do, okay, so let's say I work for a landscaping company. I've got to go mow a lawn today, right? I'm going to go mow that lawn today. I don't know if that house has cameras or not. I'm not aware of that. I'm not paying attention to that. It's not on my radar, so I don't realize that it's there. Now, for me, with my past, and yeah, you're aware of those things. Like you're just like, okay, yeah, this place has cameras.
Yeah.
Like you just see those
Right.
things, and so because
That's
you
what I'm
see those
saying.
things, but I don't know if that's the obvious for everyone. And
Sure.
I mean, if they're like, hey, you have 2 hours to get this job done. As soon as you clear out the building, you need to get out of there as soon as possible, but you need to run 35,000 ballots through because we're losing by 10,000 and we can't make it look suspicious. I mean, I made that up, but if that was the guideline or the premise, I mean, yeah, you're not thinking about cameras. You're thinking about getting that job done and not getting caught, I mean, in my opinion. And I think what we'll see, again, I mean, I've also heard speculation that what they were doing was actually protocol too. So, I mean, who knows? I mean, that's got to get investigated and come out. But either way, it's suspicious. It'll get investigated. But this is not the only polling place in question that has security cameras.
Right.
So I think what this video or this quote unquote evidence that was put into the courts, is going to open up a can of worms in regards to all of these other states looking into security cam footage. What else can we find? Do we find anything else? Did anybody delete security camera footage? Is there any like gap in time for any specific reason? And then, obviously I think they're going to have to start comparing, their data analysis with votes in regards to the timelines of the video footage. Cause I mean, shit, if 35,000 votes came through for Joe Biden at 12:30 a.m. on November 4th, and you can see these people in this video putting through ballot after ballot after ballot after ballot into a machine, then, I mean, if A equals B and B equals C, A equals C, man, that's the transitive property. I mean, that's just a given. It's a given. I mean, they're guilty. But
Yeah.
that's going to cause a lot of speculation towards multiple things. And I think, truthfully, I'm trying to think rationally, I guess. I'm not trying to be political. I'm saying, I mean, if I was a Democrat in this situation, right? The Republicans are saying we got to recount, we got to check all this fraud, we got to figure all this out, and make sure that the election wasn't cheated. I mean, if I'm a Democrat, I mean, I lost a lot of states. I mean, like full states. I mean, there's a lot of red states in the country. So if I'm watching and I see, well, shit, there's a poll counting place that's doing some really crazy stuff, adding a bunch of votes for me. I mean, there's at least 20 states out there that easily Donald Trump won. We should go look and see if they cheated. I mean, he blew me out of the water by 50,000 votes. Like, that shouldn't have happened, or whatever. I mean, I feel like it should be going both ways,
but it's not at all. In regards
to the concern, but it's not. I mean, the evidence is concerning, at least what has been provided thus far. They say there's a ton of it. I haven't seen a ton of it. I've seen a little bit of it, like this video, but that video itself for me would be concerning enough, no matter what side you are on, to say, yeah, that's not okay. We got that can't happen. Even if they didn't do anything wrong, like, that can't happen. Like, that place should be lock and key, locked up. Nobody's allowed in there. I mean, this is a presidential election place. I mean, nobody should be allowed in. Nobody should be allowed to be even close to any of that stuff if we're not counting votes. Like, that's my opinion. But as soon as you start letting people wander around in there, I mean, questions are going to get raised. And that happened for what, 2.5 hours on that video?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yep.
I mean, common sense says, nobody should be in there if you said everyone's leaving. Like, one of the affidavits said that everybody was asked to leave and they'd start counting in the morning, like at 8 or 8:30 or something like that. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, if everybody was asked to leave and that was written multiple times from multiple witnesses, you would assume that nobody would be there if everybody was asked to leave. But that's not the case. So, I mean, yeah. And that's only one state. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, because I don't know. I haven't really heard a whole lot of other evidence coming out, like, from other states. Like, it's not like necessarily that much in the news right now. It's not out there. People say, there's so much evidence. There's so much evidence, and people come out and they say these things. There are people who say these things all the time, but on these alternative news sources, like, but you can't, but there's no, like, I guess, necessarily, like, physical evidence. There's no, but they're not just putting it out there. They just say it's there, and they did that with the Biden thing too.
And the Russia collusion thing and all of that garbage that's been going on for 4 years. I mean, hey, let's create a story with no evidence to ruin people's careers and see if we can get it to go through. And if not, we'll just act like it didn't happen. Like, that's messed up, but that's how it's going. We all lied about it. Everybody got caught lying about it. And yet there's been no consequences. I mean, shit, if I lie about being sick, I get fired. Like, I can't, as a person who makes $45,000 a year, I can't lie about being sick without getting fired. And there are people in this country who are lying about federal crimes who just get a pass. It blows my mind. I can't take a sick day to be with my kid because that would be lying because I'm not sick.
Yeah.
But these people can literally delete government information knowingly and also say that they did it and get no consequence. That blows my mind. I mean, it blows my mind. And the crazy thing is we all accept it. Everybody knows it. I mean, everybody knows that in 2016, Hillary Clinton just happened to get rid of a bunch of emails, but we just moved on.
Yeah.
With no conclusion. Nobody cared. I mean, that was the same thing back in 2013, 2014. This Malaysian flight with 368 people just vanishes off the face of the earth. But yet we hear no family testimonies. We never really find a plane, but then we kind of did, but then we didn't, but then we did over the course of 2 years. And then just kind of diffused away. And
here's a piece of the tail fin or whatever.
Right.
Just
it's
convenient.
It's almost like these monolith things, like this Malaysian flight. Holy crap, 368 people disappeared in the air and nobody knows what happened to them. And now it's like, oh my gosh, there's these metal structures everywhere in the world. So my biggest thing is what's really going on?
What's the
are
deal
these
with
metal
those
structures
metal
all around the world a way to get to the universe, or is this just a heavily well thought out distraction because they know people will bite for it, the sheep of the world, and they won't look at anything else? Because to me, I feel like there's a lot of very significant court cases going on in the world regarding not only the election, but also some very severe crimes that people have been in question about, like those emails that have been appealed and appealed and appealed year after year. What's the conclusion of those issues? I would like to get to a conclusion and know what's going on. And I feel like we just keep pushing it back and creating a new story. Here's a new story so that we forget about the old one.
Yeah.
And I think we need to start reading to the end of the books here, I think we need to start finding the conclusions, and I don't know. A part of my gut tells me that those conclusions are coming. I think we're going to be getting some of them pretty soon here.
I know it's like you just wait every day for something new to come out or something.
I think, but that's the thing. I was saying this to a couple students today too. Something's got to give, though. The entire, at least the majority of, I would say, the United States. I can't speak for anybody else but myself, but the vibe that I get is that every single person in this country knows something's not right. It doesn't, whether you're Republican, Democrat, you give no craps about politics, and you live out in the boonies and don't even have cellular service. Doesn't matter who you are, something's not right. It just doesn't seem right. We're waiting for an answer of some sort. We don't know to what question, but we need an answer of something, and it's just not here. I think everybody kind of feels that.
Yeah.
And to me, that means that if that's the energy going on in the world right now, everybody's kind of feeling that, then there has to be an answer.
Well, because I think there's a lot of those, liberals or more or left leaning people, even not necessarily like a hardcore liberal, but they want to do the right thing and they want to, protect people, and they don't know.
Yeah.
They just don't know what's going on, and they,
right, well,
they
okay.
and then they when they see all these abnormalities or things that are outside of the story of the mainstream media, then that puts that that seed of that little bit of seed of doubt, well, what? And then they just snap back into their liberal mindset, and that seed is still there, and it's always right behind anything, any interaction, or there's always that little bit of insecurity, I would say.
Yeah,
Everybody just seems to be very insecure and just what's going on. Yeah.
I watched there's this, I don't know if I would call her a YouTuber, or I don't know, because that's not really my lingo, but she this younger female goes around and interviews people off the street about their political views and things like that. And I don't know where she was at, but I did notice there was like a big marijuana CBD sign in the background. So it was one of those states. So we can narrow that down right now. But she was interviewing this couple who was walking with masks, and you know, whatever the masks, I'm not getting into that. But you know, they were wearing masks. Nobody else around them was wearing masks. This female wasn't wearing a mask who was interviewing it, and she just kind of starts asking them some general questions on their kind of ideologies and why they voted for Joe Biden or why they support Biden. And this lady, you know, I mean, she was much more vocal than the male. I think it was a married couple. And, you know, the female interviewer had asked, you know, like, so what was it about Joe Biden that you voted for him? Was it his gun policies? And, you know, they were like, no, it was more or less about his environmental policies. And so, you know, whatever, they never got into that conversation, but the interviewer had asked her, well, do you know about his gun policies? And they said, well, that's not really our thing. We're not really gun owners, and she's like, well, do you realize like what that means? Like what? And she's like, well, I don't believe people should have like assault rifles at their house. And so then the interviewer asked her, well, what's your definition of assault rifles? You know, and she's like, you know, machine guns that can shoot like, you know, rapidly. I mean, I'm paraphrasing here, obviously, but, you know, like she's, you know, giving her thoughts to it. And the interviewer kind of was like, well, that's not really what it means, because those guns are already illegal. You know, like machine guns or automatic weapons are already illegal. So, I mean, if there are people that have them in their possession, they illegally possess those already. So, I mean, that's against the law. So what other guns are going to be taken away, right? I mean, every other gun, if it's not automatic, would be semi-automatic or bolt action or, you know, whatever. And so that's kind of what she's asking her. And the two people, like you were saying, they were kind of like, oh, and then they just played it off kind of like, well, it doesn't really matter to us anyway, you know? And then this guy comes up, like, I don't know if he was drunk or stoned or just having a good day. I know he was smoking something. It might've been a cigarette. I don't know, but the sign in the background, you know, made me think maybe he's doing some other stuff. But anyway, he comes up and he's like, I think he made a valid point, and this might be a biased valid point, but he comes up and he's like, you guys wouldn't be walking down this street right now if Donald Trump wasn't the president. You wouldn't be able to be walking down the street. Even if you have your mask on, you'd have to be home. And you know, it's just one of those, like, he's like, you know, everybody around here is kind of free to live the way they want right now. And that's how it should be, you know? And it's like, I do feel that way. I understand there's a pandemic, and I understand that it is serious, and viruses can be very, very serious for people with weak immune systems. It's no matter what, it doesn't matter what kind of virus. I mean, anybody with a weak immune system can be attacked and find themselves unhealthy and having some very severe symptoms. But I mean, yeah, this guy's just like pointing out that these people really don't know what they voted for. But this lady had the nerve to say that Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, the current president of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump, is the shittiest person in the entire world. She stated that. And the interviewer asked her, even like worse than Vladimir Putin? And she said yes. Like, that's how ridiculous of a mindset that is. Like, really, you really think, like, you really believe that? Like, you really feel that? Like, you don't know what it's like in those countries. I can't say I do, but I know people that live in other countries that have talked about it, and it doesn't seem to be that fun or that great. But I don't know. I mean, is this lady just completely skewed in her vision that Donald Trump is worse than Vladimir Putin? I mean, is that a crazy thought, or am I crazy?
No, she's absolutely crazy. And that's not even like saying that he's a worse person than Vladimir Putin. I mean, that's more or less like irrelevant, because obviously there's a whole lot worse people out there, you know, than Donald Trump. He does so many good things for the people who don't have voices. I mean, he's he's brought forward, a lot of these. He's trying to drain the swamp more or less, and
Yeah.
it's not just gonna happen overnight, obviously. So it's gotta, and that's why they're just trying to cheat and cheat and cheat their way out of this thing.
I mean, that's just what it seems to be like. It's
Because
like,
that's their last option, because he's a good person, and he and
God,
they and that's what happens. The good people are always persecuted. The good people are always assassinated. Like
always.
you don't the wolf is he's in sheep's clothing, and they are always just they're protected by some force.
Right.
and and it's and Trump he's just on the other end of that, and he's trying to just take on this beast, and they're trying to get
This
rid of him.
beast.
But
It's a beast, man. It's a big, nasty beast. I tell you that. I mean, yeah. I mean, geez, it started in like it started before the 2016 election. When he said he was running for office, they tried to get rid of him. I mean, and like you and I talked about a while ago, like, there was a video I saw not too long ago. I have no idea who it was by, or I can't give reference to anybody, so I apologize for that. But yeah, it was like just discussing, Donald Trump or President Trump and the things that he has kind of done, like the things that we don't hear about in the mainstream media, but the under the table, like, some of the deals that have been made and some of the, like little things that he's done. I mean, I think those are important. I mean, I found out that, like Lou Holtz, right? He got what is it, the Medal of Freedom, or the Congressional Medal of Freedom, or whatever that's called, and
okay.
I thought about that. I think he was awarded that yesterday, and I watched the video and I just kind of listened to how Donald Trump spoke about Lou Holtz, and it wasn't fabricated. Like, you know what I mean? It wasn't fake. Like, I feel like I have a pretty decent ability to just read people, whether it's through the screen or face to face. I mean, obviously face to face is a heck of a lot easier. But I mean, I feel like you can tell when someone's being genuine and when somebody's reading a script or faking it or forcing it. And I really feel like he was genuine in his words towards Lou Holtz. And, Lou Holtz has a huge faith towards Jesus Christ and has shared that with his obviously his family, but his players. And, even through his books and everything, he's talked about how, his faith has always been able to get him through even some of the hardest times of his life. His childhood, it was rough. He was poor and, didn't have much, but, faith always got him through. And I mean, to award a man like that, who has changed so many young adult lives and led so many people to a path of goodness, to award somebody like that, I think is very honorable. Because
Absolutely.
And nothing against Obama. I haven't looked into him a ton. I know some things that are questionable. But I mean, when you look at who got the award when he was in office, you're looking at Bill Gates, who I have just giant red flags on. I mean, if I could build a flag that went to space, it'd be the biggest red flag ever. I mean, that guy, I do not know why people are listening to him. I mean, maybe he's a genius. Maybe he knows exactly everything we should do to live the best life, because that's what he's saying. Sorry, man, I don't believe you. I don't. And I've looked into the things that he has said, in regards to his, climate control formula that he presented on the TED Talks and things. I don't trust the guy. I'm sorry. I mean, in regards to his formula, I mean, the only way I see it, there's some independent variables and there's some dependent variables. And the only way to limit or get rid of the amount of CO2 on this planet is 4 of those variables, and the only independent variable would be people. And then everything else is dependent on people, or dependent on whatever is dependent on people. And when you think about that, it's like, well, then, yep, you're right. The only way to get rid of CO2 emissions is people, because it's the only independent variable in the formula. And that's what he's doing. And now he's the spokesman for this vaccine. I mean, the guy created Microsoft, I thought he was a computer dude. And now he's telling us how to live our lives in regards to our health. I find that odd, but everybody's listening. Why? Because the media has put Bill Gates in front of our face as a success story, as a genius, and as the man, the myth, and the legend, our whole lives. Ever since Bill Gates has been able to be on TV, he has been just the best, Well, I start to question that, because we're all sinful. We're not all, we're all not that so great, Yeah. And I'm sorry, Bill, but when you start talking about decreasing the population, and you're a huge advocate for abortions, and it doesn't matter how they're done, as long as they're done, I mean, yeah, I'm not okay with that. So I mean, you telling me how to live my life, I'm sorry. I'm not telling you how to live yours, man, and I don't agree with the way you're doing it. So don't come knocking on my door telling me how to live mine. I'm sorry. But anyway, back to those medals. I mean, Ellen DeGeneres, I think she got it on the same day that Bill Gates got it. Like,
yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, hey, Ellen's cool in the face of the people, but didn't we just hear a story that she treated all of her employees just horrifically, and it was a horrible place to work? And that even like other celebrities who have been on her set said the same thing. And then, oh, well, she, had to quarantine, and we took her off TV real quick. We hushed that story up, and boom, she's back. And all she said was, sorry. I shouldn't have acted like that, and I should have taken more responsibility, or whatever she said. I'm like, well, yep, got to get the distraction back on TV. You got to get everybody watching Ellen again and talking about Ellen real quick, so we don't see what else is going on. Because I'm sorry, people need consequences. When you treat people poorly, you need consequences. And she didn't get one. She got her show back. She still makes millions of dollars, and she will continue to be a puppet for whoever's paying her.
Yeah, and it's not even that she just treated her employees crappy, shitty. It's not even that. It's it's the other things that go on behind the scenes that she's a part of, that doesn't get called out and doesn't ever come to the public's knowledge, and that just and it gets shut down, and then she gets protected. She gets put behind that brick wall, and then just put back on TV, and everything's good, and I'm a great person, and this and that, and
yep. And then all the people that stayed on her show were probably getting a nice, pretty paycheck, and everybody that said something probably doesn't work there. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, the people that said the place is a bad work environment probably aren't still working there. I mean, they probably weren't given their jobs back when the show returned. I mean, that'd be my guess. I don't know that, but I mean, again, like and I think this goes for everything. If it happened once, it's a coincidence. If you have one story about it, but nobody else saw it or anything, I mean, yeah, I mean, hey, it could still be true, but you don't have as much validity. But when more than one person, and then when it becomes multiple and multiples upon multiples that say the same types of things, I mean, that's not a coincidence anymore. I mean, that's 100% a correlation. I mean, there's a lot of things that connect right there. And so I think we need to look into that, and look into that really hard, because this is the same thing with the election. I mean, in Ellen's case, I mean, a lot of people said a lot of those things. Like, it wasn't just one person. But hey, look at how that ended up. She got her show back. There was no conclusion. Ellen didn't get any consequence. She got her job back, and now she's handing out Christmas gifts, like she's a great person. Or her whatever holidays Gifts of Fun or whatever she calls it, and she still gets her other game shows and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I think what we see is, and another rabbit hole I'm sure we'll jump into someday. I mean, all of these people, like you said, aren't only necessarily connected on a TV celebrity level. I mean, there's a much deeper level that these people are connected. I firmly believe, and you can just see that. If you look at it, you can see it. Like, just look at who these people spend their time with. Look at who these people donate their money to. Look at, there is public knowledge out there that does not have to necessarily come from the mainstream media on TV or Facebook or Twitter. I mean, you can go look at some things, and when you do, I think you connect the dots. I mean, you got Oprah, she's got her own talk show. You've got Ellen, she's got or had her own talk show. Oprah's got her own network, for God's sakes. Their connections to Harvey Weinstein, or that's his name, right? Harvey Weinstein, the guy that got into a bunch of trouble, and then then you look at like Oprah's connection to John of God. I mean, we're jumping into the rabbit hole here, but geez, these are not good people. And then you look at all of their connections to Jeffrey Epstein, and then you look at, holy shit, Bill Clinton was in there too. And then, oh my gosh, so were all these other celebrities. And then you ask yourself, wait a second, what's going on with Ghislaine Maxwell? What's going on? I don't know. She did what she did. Is she going to jail for the rest of her life? Are we going to put her to death for being just a sick, nasty human being? Or are we going to let her get out on bond and just go let her live her life and just make sure she doesn't escape the country until somebody decides to do something? Just do something. I feel like there is plenty of evidence. I feel like the public has plenty of just gut evidence to lock her ass up, don't let her out, and get as much information out of her as you can, because there's a lot of people out there still walking around free that are messing with kids, and that can't happen. That cannot happen. I'm sorry, I don't care. I know I'm just some wee little man in the middle of nowhere, but gosh dang it, like, these are very powerful people with a lot of control getting to do whatever the hell they want. And I firmly believe that's what Donald Trump is trying to do. I think he knows exactly what they've done. I think he has been on the inside, and like you and I've talked about in the past, I think he uses the best business strategy on the planet. I think he has his entire life. Keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. If you know exactly what your enemies are doing, they can't beat you. And he hasn't been beaten. They haven't beat him on any level, like, yet. And they've tried for 4 years. But I think he knows all of their secrets. He used to be a business guy. He still is a business guy. He's one of the wealthiest men in the world. And he has been for a very long time. I'm guessing he's got some connections. I'm guessing he knows some things. I don't think he's just some arrogant, stupid business guy. I think he knows a lot about a lot. I think the family ties to the Kennedys. I think the family ties to the world in regards to business. I think the guy knows some things. And I think that's why things right now don't feel very good out there in the world, because those things are being brought to the table and everyone's doing whatever they can do to stop it. And that's why not just a few people, but the whole world is freaking out right now, because the whole world, in regards to these elite, crazy, sick people, are all being brought to the forefront. And the crazy, weird thing is that, there's this not so nice hair, not so athletic, arrogant, sometimes outspoken guy in the United States who's getting it done. That's the weird thing. Like, I always go back to the Bible. Like, you knew there was going to be somebody that comes back and not the Antichrist and not Jesus, obviously, by any means, or even a prophet, but we hear in the Bible that the good news will be spoken and that the light will be shown on the darkness. And it's like, I've read that verse. I've read those scriptures many a times, and I've had that hope and that faith for quite some time in my life. But if I was to pick one person, I never one time would have put my finger on Donald Trump to be the guy that's telling people about Jesus Christ. I'm sorry, but there's multiple times he has, and I think that's an amazing thing. I don't care if he's lying to people about other things or not. I mean, the thing is, when he starts talking about Jesus, you can tell that he's passionate. Whether he's doing it for votes or not, he's bringing people to Jesus Christ. And I think that's highly, highly, highly important.
Yeah, and I think you can see the kind of transformation from when he started, like when he became president.
Oh, 100%.
It didn't feel as genuine. You didn't believe it. At least I didn't. I was like, well, he's just saying that to get votes. He's just saying that to get into the Republican, gain the trust of the Republican Party. And you can see now that it's much more heartfelt, and he's already gotten backlash for it, so he doesn't care about it. He doesn't care about that anymore. So
but like, you know,
putting it
this
out
too,
there.
Like your background, your family's background, like obviously, you guys were, private school students raised with a Christian background in the home and in school and throughout your lives. I mean, when you believe in Jesus, it's not just one person in the family. It's generally a collective group, and maybe there's just a couple outliers. And so when I really look at the family, I mean, it's not just President Trump speaking about Jesus. It's Donald Trump Jr., it's Ivanka, I don't know the other one, but Eric Trump, I mean, they've all spoken about how good Jesus is, and not just using the term God, because I think it's important to realize that the term God is used in many forms, and there are many religions that use that term in different contexts. So, I mean, all these people like praise God. I mean, we don't really know who they're talking about, because the devil is known as a god to Satanists. I mean, we don't know who they're talking about. But when you talk about Jesus Christ, you know exactly who they're talking about. And I think that's the difference I've made in political speech in regards to when they start talking about their faith. They're not just talking about God and how good God is. They're talking about the sacrifice Jesus Christ made for us and how important that is, and that more people need to know that. I think that's the difference, in my opinion.
Yep, but I do have to get going here, buddy.
What?
Yeah.
What, you have like a life outside of podcasts, conspiracies, religion, and politics?
I wish not, but no, I could do this all night.
Oh man, I don't even know how long we've been on here, honestly. What time is it? Holy
We've
cow.
been going for a while.
So, well, all right, yeah, I think it'd be a good time to close. I mean, obviously we talked about a lot already and kind of alluded to a lot of things too, I mean, there's a lot you and I have discussed over the duration of our friendship / brotherhood.
Absolutely.
If that's the right term.
I would say so, yeah.
So, like, I guess, obviously this is the first time we've ever done this, and I have no idea if anybody would ever even listen to this. But if they do, I hope they at least look into some of the things that we talk about. So, like, how do we want to go about this moving forward? What do we want to talk about the next time we do something like this?
I don't know. I think we got to come up with a title for our show for one. and we gotta and I don't know. I think we gotta. I mean, because there are rabbit holes that we should go down, and it's gonna have to. 100%. I think that's gonna have to be set up, and we're gonna have to talk about that, see what we want to talk about, and see if anything comes to light, in between the times that we do these talks.
For sure, and just pay attention to what's going on and see if there's anything we can add to it. Because I mean, honestly, I think I would like to really. There's two rabbit holes that I've preached to a few of my colleagues, and I think if you and I were to discuss those, it would shed quite a bit of light, if they were to choose to listen to this, on some of the more detailed things that you and I have kind of stumbled upon that bring up questions. I mean, obviously you and I have very little like hard evidence. Like, we were never present in any of these things. But when you start connecting dots in regards to information and other people's experiences, I mean, some of these things get pretty crazy and some of them get pretty sick and twisted.
Right.
And so two of them and you can decide, I mean, we'll talk obviously outside of this, but two of them uh, that I would really, really, really like to look into, and just because it's weird, it's just weird. One of them is something you and I have discussed in the past regarding Paul VI Assembly Hall in Vatican City, and just its the architectural design and like what's that all about? I don't know. It's just weird to me. And then the other one was the Clintons' campaign managers, the Podesta family.
Absolutely.
And their artwork that hangs in their homes.
Yeah.
And just the again, going back to art and just knowing that art is a form of passion and expression, and that this is what these people choose to be passionate about and express within their homes is highly questionable. I mean, if you ask me. So
yeah,
those are two of like 1,000. So think about it. Maybe that's one of those things we can talk about whenever we do this again. Hopefully it's like weekly or bi-weekly, because I think if people listen, man, I think if they go out and look, I think we can at least maybe wake some people up to questioning things instead of just following like blind sheep.
Yeah. I agree, man. That's why we're doing it. So
100%. So all right, man. Well, hey, thanks for setting this up, dude. I think this is going to be awesome. You're awesome. Thank you.
Agreed, buddy. Hey, I love you, man.
Hey, I love you too, man. I'll talk to you later.
Talk to you later. Yeah, bye.